The best product does not win. Is Super the best product? Maybe. Is Quite Happily the best product? Maybe. Best products don't win. The best go-to-market does. And sometimes the best go-to-market will create the best product because they get the fastest feedback loops. So we spent a lot of time in just creating a ton of content.
On today's episode of the Built Happily podcast, we have someone that's been staying supered, Matt Bolian.
Matt joins us today to talk about his story of how he got thrust into the HubSpot universe and built one of the favorite apps for partners out there in the ecosystem, Supered. You'll hear the story of how it started as an idea and actually came to fruition and everything in between. All that and more on this episode of the Built Happily podcast.
This is the Built Happily podcast, where we dive into building apps, companies, and relationships in the HubSpot ecosystem.
As HubSpot grows, so does the opportunity, and we put you in the room with the people making it all happen.
Mr. Matt, long time coming, superstar in the industry, shaking like you make it.
Act like number one. I think also number one on the original list.
Oh,
when we wrote Matt, so I don't know how much Dax told you about the show.
I just threw a random podcast invite onto my calendar and just didn't even ask if it was the right, like it worked.
No context, nothing. Great.
No, man. We do it. That's how we do it because you know you're real people. You're comfortable.
Yeah, I just said, hey, Dax, I want to talk more. And he's done. And then just random, this thing showed up.
Well, this is perfect. Matt, when we originally conceived this show, we wanted to talk to people who have built, originally it was just built apps on HubSpot, right, Dax? Right. And we had the original, we got a giant list of people.
Those 10 people, like we went through them really quick.
Giant list of people, but then we were like, there's people that build more than just apps on HubSpot, right? And what we really do is we talk to people who build anything in this universe that's worth talking about. But you do bring it down to the core kind of essence of the reason we put this show together is we wanted to talk to people in the ecosystem that's built some really freaking awesome stuff. And you, my friend, I am one of your biggest fans. I'm sure I've told you this a million times in the past. No, seriously, because I think what you've built is possibly one of the most consequential things to happen to both the app and partner ecosystem out there, right? And the big thing that we try to do on this show is obviously people come talk about your stuff, right? But we want to hear the story. We want to hear the origin story. We want to hear what was like going through your head when you were first thinking about this thing and all the steps it took from, oh man, I've got this really good idea to, oh wow, we've actually built this thing. And I know that's a long story, right? Because you guys have been in this for a while now, right? But we wanted to make sure that we had the ability here to build the time and space to tell the Supered story, right? And celebrate the Supered story, which is what we do on this show, right? So before we get started, for anyone who's in the ecosystem and has been living under a rock, especially if you're a partner and you haven't heard of Supered yet, Matt, tell the people what Supered is and tell the people who you are. And then me and Dax are going to have you Quentin Tarantino your story back to the beginning. But we'll prompt you and we'll tell you. But just so we can start there, what is Supered for anyone who doesn't know?
Thank you for a great intro, Max. Goodness gracious.
Thank you for being here.
What is Supered? Supered is my response to trying to build a service company in the HubSpot industry.
Interesting. You want to elaborate more?
No, that's it, man.
That's what it is.
That's it. Supered is my response. It's everything I wish I had when I was building, and not everything. That's too strong, but it's at its fundamentals. It's the problem I saw with CRM implementations and getting them to work and create retainers. It's that problem. And so Supered's my response to that. And my response is not done. So it's hard to say, what does it do today? Because what it does today isn't what it'll do more tomorrow. And so I think part of the story is here's what it did when we started, here's what it does now, and here's how we plan to tackle in the future.
Well, we keep seeing this over and over again about this service to software jump, right? After you find HubSpot, you can do some stuff or somebody asks you to do some stuff because you're the nerdiest person within arm's reach. They're like, yo, can you do this? And then you end up seeing the gaps or the kind of technical downfalls, missing pieces, and you build them because no one else is, because no one else has step one, which was implementing it in the first place. So where did you come from and how did you get into the HubSpot ecosystem implementing it?
Here's how I got into the HubSpot ecosystem was not on purpose. And so I think that's a common portion of HubSpot. I think it's less common, but it was very common when people started. I was in the military for 6.5 years. And when I got out, I ended up being chief of staff for a tech company down in Mississippi, where I'm from. And we started doing mergers and acquisitions, and I was the head randomly with no reason, no thought, probably a bad idea. I was the head of the quote to cash implementation of taking companies that we merged and adding them to our current tech stack. So I didn't know what Salesforce was, but we had Salesforce. And so I was getting them in Salesforce. I didn't know what NetSuite was, but I was getting it into NetSuite and put them into our ERP and all the tools that went with that and our tech stack. I did that for a hot second for 2 years. Then the person that hired me moved to a company in Atlanta called Connectivity Wireless, brought me over and said, hey, man, I want you to run our revenue systems. And so I came over and read the revenue systems. We had Microsoft Dynamics there and everything that comes with Microsoft Dynamics, which is worse than Salesforce, just so we're all clear.
True.
And so I got very into that. And then I was helping run the sales team. I was essentially doing this was before RevOps was this big term everybody talked about. It was more called business operations. So I was head of the business systems, what it was actually called, not revenue systems. About a year into that job, the person I followed left, and everybody, it was a PE company. It was like a PE firm. This was my first interaction with PE companies and like funds and being like a number on a head count. Fired everybody that came with him. So it was about 55 people. And it was around a 200 person company. Fired every one of them in the next week except me. In my mind, I'm like, what the heck?
You just got a promotion.
Because I was one of the higher pay, I was one of the higher salaries. And it was not me. It was not me. And I was, what? And so I was like, okay, I got to get out. This is a really bad call. I'm a number and I'm just waiting to get off. But why didn't I get fired? That's a question I kept asking myself. And I found out as people came after me otherwise, and sales team members were like, Matt, no way. You're the reason where we can do everything we can do in the CRM. You've helped me so much. I can actually do these you're the reason this thing actually works. It'd be ERP, pushing it through. Unbeknownst to them, I'm out there doing interviews and I'm trying to get a job in the Salesforce ecosystem as a RevOps guy. And I literally got to a hire and I kept being told, Matt, you don't have enough experience. You're not good enough at RevOps in the Salesforce ecosystem. And I could not get a job getting out. Couldn't do it. That's when I met randomly at a wedding, one of my friend's wedding, Brendan Tollison. That's where I met him. He had just become CRO. And then COVID hit, recently got fired being CRO. And I was like, hey man, I think there's something to be said about this RevOps thing. And I think we can do it as a service. I think we can act like a SaaS. So I went around and tried to find, and I wanted this idea of this all in-house, no one has to pay anything. And I was standardized on ActiveCampaign because it was the cheapest and I could do it. They just bought, gosh, I forgot what that company was called. They just bought one of these companies. It was a CRM. Started getting clients and they had Salesforce, and I was trying to tell them off Salesforce. But then one of them, as like our fourth client, had HubSpot, and I was actively trying to get them off HubSpot. And in my act of pushing buttons in HubSpot, because I thought HubSpot was fake. I literally thought like I'd been brainwashed by the Salesforce mafia. I love Salesforce people. I am a Salesforce person. That's where I came from. But I had been told, I literally been told in places, Salesforce says we built for sales teams. HubSpot's built for marketers. Like it is a subpar, suboptimal, not good enough solution for people that don't know what they're doing. So I came in with that mentality and I was moving them off. And I was like, man, this is so easy. If my teams would have had this, I would not suffer from getting them to do things in the same way. And I went to Brendan and said, hey, Brendan, I was wrong because he was selling. I was wrong. We need to go all in HubSpot. I know there's an arbitrage because I've been brainwashed. And so I know nobody knows how good this is right now. This was 5 years ago. Nobody knows how good this is right now. We have to go all in on this. Yep. We need to go to sales teams because they have no clue how good it is with sales teams. So that's how we started getting into it. That's how I found HubSpot, because I was trying to build a business and I realized that it's the easiest thing to adopt, period.
Yeah, so that's adoption is, no matter what, you're going to run in the adoption rabbit hole, because I have a tool that you've made that is ridiculously great for adoption. Hey, you forgot how to do this? It's right here when you're going to do it. It's going to tell you what to do. Yeah. Hey, you forgot how to create an event in HubSpot? Here's how you do it. And here's how we do it as a business, right? And then you have to get that you're taking away adoption as a concept, basically like deprecating adoption because it's force-fed, baby, in your mouth. What's interesting too is what was it, right? Because if this was 2020-ish, right, COVID style, what about HubSpot was it? No, the easy use, the UI, like we get that's prettier than HubSpot looking like Windows NT, or Salesforce looking like that. But what were you clicking on? What was the process that you were trying to rip out?
It is, I think this is an overused analogy. However, I think very helpful. HubSpot has an opinion about their software, and it's over time gotten easier to customize that opinion, but it starts with an opinion. Mm-hmm. And Salesforce and Microsoft Dynamics do not.
Yeah, they're blank slates.
Blank slates.
I love how you said that analogy too, because I always say software should have an opinion, and one of the greatest softwares of opinion, and the result of that opinion is when you click somewhere you're not supposed to, dum, 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 and you do that all day. That is an opinion. You should not be clicking here. I'm going to make this annoying as hell for you if you click.
Yeah, give opinions. And HubSpot has a pretty glaring, obtuse opinion. Yeah. And it used to be what kept them from winning. It kept them from winning enterprise deals, but they knew that. And now they've made it more and more customizable, period. That's the opinion was we're going to go both down market and we're going to both go to the SMB market and enterprise at the same time. And we're going to build everything in-house to work well. And that over time, that opinion just gave a more fluid feel and an emotion. And in that moment, when you don't know where the freak to click and you don't know what to do, that's where you lose people. It's those like tiny micro moments, and HubSpot just has less opportunities to have that happen.
Matt, can you isolate down and tell us about the moment that the first concept of the idea of Supered like popped into your head?
Good question. Y'all are good at this. You've done this a few times.
We have. That's just it. We want the nuanced moments that no one talks about.
When Brandon and I started Rev Partners, he came from the company he was at before, and the company he'd come from where he came at a $3 million company. He was the head of channel, and they went to $100 million, and he was there for that entire journey building. So he saw the power of this idea of partnerships firsthand. And so that's just where he's geared. That's what he thinks about. That's number one. Number two, so we were talking about it. That's all we talked about. So when we grew the business, it was always through partnerships. It was very rarely through direct outreach to end users. It was always through some kind of partnership, like doing a tool like Hapily and building that in and actually winning. Because that's where you make money as a partner. If you don't, by the way, if you don't do that, guys, one to many, and it's superior to all. Just the best distribution wins. The best distribution wins. But number two is he'd grown up in the Atlassian marketplace. That's where he was at as well. And I think HubSpot has great respect for that, as everyone should. The Atlassian marketplace had large partners that then started creating lots of apps. And he worked at a company before he came called AppFire. And they used to be a service company, and then they they just started eating up all these software. They have this almost like it's a Hapily like model, right? Where you build like these very useful utility apps. You just build them really fast, faster than Atlassian can themselves. Mm-hmm. And over time, it creates momentum. And so in his mind, and both of us, is the only way you can know to do that. It's what you said earlier, Dax. The only way we can know that is just pain. You must suffer. You can't come into an ecosystem and say you're going to build utility apps. You'll fail. You must first suffer.
Yeah.
And then
all of our apps are built on pain.
Yes. Must be built on need pain, right? Like you tried to do it. So part of RevPartners was always in the back of our minds was, at least me and him starting, was we're going to do this with the intent of building apps. So we just need as many reps as possible. So that mutated when we got into HubSpot and the ecosystem, and we saw where it was going. And two things happened, because I can't get through this. And I'm going to get to when did the moment was super.
Yeah.
Is one of the things I felt missing in the HubSpot ecosystem. And this was again 3-4 years ago.
Long time, right?
So long ago. I was like, man, I have come from fire breathing, blue underwear wearing like Salesforce place, and you get an admin towel in your butt. Like, you mean you straight up, like you get called, you go to Trailhead, you put all these badges on your face, you have it, you go it everywhere. I go to HubSpot, everyone's really nice, but not this like level of I'm going to build my entire career on this. Like, there was no herd. I had a bunch of nerds, but not really a herd. So one of the things the first things I was like, hey, if we ever want to do any type of thing, we need to build a herd. And so that's when we hey, let's build Sprocketeers just to create a herd. And so we created Sprocketeers, self-funded through Rev Partners, and never used it for recruiting. Just people thought we were absolutely crazy. It was like, hey, we got to have this. It's like good for the entire ecosystem. I don't think anybody actually believed it was just for good. But yeah, like we actually just did it for good. And so that was like thing number one. And we're like, okay, it's going to be really hard to have a software company if we don't have an organization outside of HubSpot, because everything's like curated and everyone's on their best behavior. You have to get something outside so people can say F words and curse people, say bad things and good things. So that was step one. Step two, we didn't know what we were going to build. Never knew I wanted to build. And then we had this weird, I just got really frustrated with running a service company. Got really frustrated running a service company. If you've ever been in a service company, it's really hard to scale. It's really hard to create reoccurring outcomes. And it's because you're scaling two things: people, which are very hard to curate and recreate experiences with, and processes. I had this elaborate idea of how do we do that. We created something called playbooks internally, and we created something like 50 playbooks where we could just hand a playbook in linear fashion, and this idea of standardizing delivery. And it worked. It was good, but people still didn't follow it.
Yeah, it's humans. What are you doing?
Humans, and no matter, and like the training, like people, like we lost. People would lose. You get into a quality control, you get something, and just quality. How quick, just operate. How quick you respond to things when something's broken. How do you do training and how do you do documentation? It always was, almost every single time, the experience you give people dictates how they feel and whether they stay with you. So I started saying, how the heck do I recreate experiences at scale over and over again? And so I spent a lot of time thinking about it. We had Miro, we had Loom, we had ClickUp, we had all these softwares internally to make this happen. And it just never worked. It was like it just never worked. Did it work? Does it work? Yes. But it was never sufficient.
It doesn't work,
always have people complain.
Never kept working.
It doesn't work. Like it works, but it doesn't work. And you have this constant retention problem, and you feel like you're going one step forward, two steps back over and over again. And it's brutal. And out of that, it's just suffering is where I said, man, I wish I could just turn people into superheroes. And that's like that idea. Like I wish I could recreate these couple of employees. And from that is where Super was born.
Oh, I like it. Gotcha.
Crazy, man. I got a couple questions.
Hit it.
So when you have a software company, right? Obviously completely different than service. You get the same kind of challenges because there's humans involved, right? Like you could have a software that does the best thing, but if you don't open it, you don't install it, you don't set it up right, you get the blame.
Yep.
They're like, hey, this thing didn't do what I thought it was supposed to do, right? Keyword thought. They didn't read the manual, right? Manual's still in the bag always. They're like, oh, open, plug and play. What Super does amazingly is it puts, if installed and set up correctly and whatever, right? It allows HubSpot to do what the admins, the mission calls for. What challenge did you go through to get people to get Super going and installed correctly and built out? Because it's the meta of how do I get the onboarding tool onboarded?
Yeah.
Do you use Super to get Super going, but then how do you set the first Super and it goes down the rabbit hole? Curious on adoption and onboarding of your own software as its core mission is to solve the implementation and onboarding process.
Yeah. So it's a meta. It's a meta thought. Like the product's meta. So like, how do you get people to do it? So I'm gonna say three things to give it structure in some way. And ask follow-up questions. So thing number one is we said, okay, where's the most glaring? And so backstory before I get into it, I met somebody named Steve Bussey. He built 80% of SalesLoft, and they had just been acquired by, Vista, I think. It's a big PE firm. And so he was exiting out of that. He's looking for his next adventure. He had just started another app. He built this, by this way, this app he built, if you don't know what it is, called Clove, Customer Love. It is literally deal rooms. That's what it was. 3 years before deal rooms existed, like really. And he just didn't have a go-to-market. He was looking for somebody to go market with, because he can build anything. I get introduced, and I was okay. I had these playbooks and I need to like, how do I operationalize that? Because we're thinking about doing like small, we thought we were going to do data migration and create little apps. He's like, y'all thinking way too small. He's like, you know what? I want to build a software that takes every Salesforce app and turns it auto configures it so it works in a HubSpot. I was like, oh, you're thinking big, like real big. I was like, I didn't know that's possible. He's like, yeah, I got a sample testing. I built a few. I was like, what? He took this. And so we went into this huge list of what is the mesh problems. And so we had playbooks. One of them kept being adoption. And he came. So I say that set the stage. So when we say 1, 2, 3 is the first thing is what's the most glaring problem that we can fix? And we had a go-to-market strategy. We're going to go to partners first, then we're going to end users. All the adoption problems. I'd call them almost more, by the way, process compliance problems. So you need a methodology to enforce. And so that's the issue, Dex. It's you have to have a methodology to enforce. Yeah. So when we started is what's the biggest issue? We're going to go to HubSpot. What's the biggest issue is everybody had these builds. Hey, because this is what I had playbooks. I had lifecycle builds and sales pipeline builds or workflow builds and whatever it is, right? But you had to rebuild them every single time. What is the first step of adoption? It's to freaking get to the stage of adoption. Mm-hmm. So one of them is, okay, how are we going to help people think about training first? It's to stop thinking about building first and standardizing, and then standardize so you can customize. So that was the first, standardize so you can customize. So we started going there and we built the first thing we called portal duplication in HubSpot. And that was where we started. I may say this like that's probably, if I look back, it got us to where we are, got us started. But the thing we're recovering from is that we're not a portal duplicator. It is not. Yeah. Do we help do that? Yes, but only to the end state of getting through to training and enablement, your IT tools. So that's number one. Yeah. Number two, so we have this big thing is we're going to build so that you can, and we're going to do it internally, everything supered on Supered. So Supered is a combination of 5 tools. And we can all do that because Steve can build anything faster than most people can. He's a 20x developer. So we built something like Scribe How, because you need to document processes and step-by-steps on your screen. And so we built that into Supered. Mm-hmm. We built a sequential task that we call action plans, which is what step-by-step onboarding that leads you to the correct place that can link, which it looks a lot like a deal room, right? Where you can like step-by-step practices, which is another tool. We have a knowledge document base because you must be able to search information you need, which is a guru. We did embedding where you can embed on on the screen so you can see it. And so there's all these things you have to do with adoption. And so we internally, we just said, what are we struggling with? And whatever we wanted to do next to get adoption of our own freaking processes, we built it into Super. So he's like, hey, Matt, how did you do it? Is we just use our tool and anything we don't like or need next, we build next to get compliance, to have a methodology and to comply and to get adoption of that methodology, period. That's what we do. Yeah. That's number 2. And number 3 is, I think this is important, is a great product. And y'all do a good job of this. The best product does not win. Is Super the best product? Maybe. Is Quite Happily the best product? Maybe. Best products don't win. The best go-to-market does. And sometimes the best go-to-market will create the best product because they get the fastest feedback loops. So we spent a lot of time in just creating a ton of content. And I only say that because that's part of our compliance and part of our methodology. And so when you see Super go-to-market, it's actually every net new person is not a 1 + 1. It is a multiplier. So you have one person and we now produce like 10 more pieces of content every week. Because of our methodology that we use internally with Super.
And I also want to say too, is you bring on these folks and you let them create content in their own way where their personality really shines through and they can build the stuff that they're really passionate about building when it comes to the content side of things. And I think that's a really hard thing to do. And
it's not for everybody.
With every single person that joins your ranks. And it's pretty amazing, to be honest with you, that you're able to really enable these folks to do this kind of stuff from a content side of things. I just want to put that out there.
Well, Dex, you said it's hard. It's not for everyone. I'd say we have a point of view at Super. And if you don't want to produce content, then you can't work at Super. So there's we put it in.
Not for everybody.
It's not for everybody. So we had people come out of our sales cycle. And I say sales cycle, come out of our recruiting cycle. So you mean I have to do that? I'm like, yes. Not for me. Like, I'm glad you know that now.
So I love that. All right, real quick. There's something I want to say about Super that is, to me, is like really just the fundamental, most amazing part of the entire thing. And I hope it will help. I think partners get it for the most part, but I really do want to speak to end users for a second. I want to speak to the HubSpot admin out there that maybe they're doing it on their own. They're not really working with a partner and they're struggling. They're hearing the words from management, oh, we need to drive adoption, oftentimes not really understanding what that actually means. When I was an implementation specialist, the question that I got from literally everybody was, what's the best way to train my employees on how to use this thing? And 90% of the people that you would ask that question to, I think, would, back then, we're talking like 2015 to 2018-ish, the answer they would give is, oh, HubSpot Academy. It'll teach you how to use the entire thing. Sure, HubSpot Academy is great. Like, you compare it to a lot of other software vendors out there and the education that they have and things like that. Sure, it'll do a really good job teaching you how to push the buttons and telling you which buttons do which things, right?
Yeah, I was going to say it's the latter. Yeah. Which buttons do which things.
Yep, but what I would tell people...
What things do I need to do?
What I would caution people is, hey, this is really great if your people want to go into HubSpot and say, okay, this button does this. But that's maybe only about 50% of that conversation. Because whereas, sure, HubSpot Academy can tell you what they call a marketing qualified lead, or what this and that lifecycle stage means, or what this deal stage means, or whatever, that doesn't necessarily map onto what your company thinks it is, and the process your company has built, and everything that's unique to your business and the way you do things and how you work with your customers, right? It's not going to have any of that context about what makes your company unique in it, because it can't. All it can do is tell you what it knows, which is how to use the software. But how to use HubSpot is an extremely complex question when you think about how, sure, a lot of people use it in ways that rhyme, but everyone really does it differently, and things mean different things to different people. I think the most beautiful... So what I would tell people is, listen, you got to come up with ways to train folks on what's unique to you, right? The Academy will get you so far. And then you guys came along. And the thing that I think is so awesome about it is that you can take all that stuff that I was telling people, listen, you got to be able to figure out how to train in this kind of way. You got to figure out how to inject your uniqueness about your company, your process, your customers, your business into the training you provide. You can use Super to quite literally drop your company's culture, processes, internal, like tribal knowledge, everything that's unique about your business, and overlay it onto the experience someone has as they're actually using the platform. And I think that is like when people say, oh, make HubSpot your own. Dude, you can only make it so much your own by changing around some pipelines and adding some custom properties. But when you can quite literally inject the heart of your company and everything that everybody knows, translate everything into the context of your business directly into the screen as people are using it, they go, oh, what does this mean? Oh, this is what this means in the context of us. Oh, how do I do this? This is how you do it in our world through our process. What does this stage mean? This is what we define this stage as. And you're just eliminating all of the guesswork of how do I do my job and what does all this shit mean? Because you're literally presenting to them right there. The thing that fundamentally changes the experience of using HubSpot more than anything out there. So admins, if you are struggling to define how you're supposed to use this thing in the context of different people's jobs and all that kind of stuff, this is probably the big missing piece that you've been looking for. Okay. So I just want to say that because to me, it was like it's a fundamental, like game-changing idea. So sure, you can get this piece of software, you can customize it, but that's way different than kind of the extreme that you guys take it to, where you can actually make it your own. Just want to mention that. Sorry, Dax.
I got big.
Yes. I'd say yes. Again, yes.
You say yes. That is the thing. And it is the thing. It's remarkable. And the last thing I want to chat on is I'm not even going to say the elephant in the room, but it is pink. Is this concept of being comfortable in your own skin. This is a trait that I smell from a mile away. Expressing individuality, give a fuck what anybody thinks, because you've been there and you know what you want to do. You wake up in the morning, get dressed for yourself. It's very evident that a company like Super is very comfortable and is not going by any, oh man, this is LinkedIn, I should talk about business and not toilets or what, right?
Talk about business.
Yeah, the one thing that we did that I always like look, I'm trying to turn LinkedIn into Mad TV, right?
Yeah.
Because why not? And have a good time, because we only gonna live once. We're not teenagers, we're not like elementary school. People around us are like, their lives are coming to a close and we only have so much time. So you better shine when it comes to the inside. I'm not gonna ask, do you do that? Because it's clear that you do. But what is the driving force around exuding personality? And how do you help? You don't let people in the door if they don't have a piece of that or are eligible to do that, have the aptitude to do it. But how do you speak on the gospel of being yourself within the company and sharing that kind of with everyone?
That's a big question, Dex.
It is, because it's about it's damn near close to humanity. Like, why are you?
Oh yeah, you're like asking, what's the purpose of life, Matt?
Correct.
Why do you exist?
I have a thought about that. Before is I'm going to sit for 1 second on this, because I think it'll get into having a belief and being able to be convicted enough about a belief to proselytize it, right? If you would, like, and so like belief, and then you have a conviction, and then you share that conviction, and people believe in that together. A few beliefs, and so everything about Super is going to be, you're going to have a very specific belief or point of view to it. So, example, we're not building AI because I don't want to build AI. We deliver last mile, and we will make the human the point and the touch point, and we will exemplify the human because that's what I want to do, as an example. So we spend a lot of time thinking about last mile delivery and not thinking about, I think AI will be a ubiquitous tool that everybody uses, but the last mile that people are forgetting about now will be where the real frontier is for people. So these point of views, like, how do we take these? I've thought a lot about recreating humans. I did this at Rev Partners. I'm doing this at Super. It's called operating principles. The reason I like business is because you do things that you could fail at. You'd be wrong. And I think it's really important for people to be willing to be wrong, which means there has to be risk, which means you could fail at something. So I like private sector because, in business and for-profit institutions, because you have to have a risk inherent. And when you have risk, you can have shared suffering. And through shared suffering, meaning as a company, you can have and you can create, period. Okay. Now let's look, how do you recreate and give people the space and the place to be and understand that they have something to add and they're valuable? Like, how do you do that? There's a book, I love it. I endorsed it. It's called The 5 Functions of a Team. He also wrote, that's Patrick Lencioni, and he has something called The Advantage, which is organizational health is the only thing that matters. And it has this idea that if you're going to do something that's going to be a common mission, it has to be big enough to matter. So Super say we're going to be $100 million work. So just something big, hard, could happen, could not happen. Then you have shared suffering. The only way the org will get there, or that like creates time and places for people, is you must have shared, and I think Dax, you'd call it shared humanity. I would call it shared vulnerability. And you must be able to say, I'm wrong, you're right, and I love you. So I want to be places and spaces, which is of reconciliation. And so if you can create places and spaces of reconciliation, you will have great growth and people that feel confident in their own skin to say something. Because it doesn't mean, so kindness means like giving your opinion. So we have these operating principles that we operate by. I can go deeper, but it's really that. And we have a very prescriptive way we think about that, about how do you make sure people feel comfortable to fail? How do you give them the room to fail? How do you bring them up? We don't call out, we call up. Like, how do we do all those things? We spend a lot of time thinking about that. So my mission is to unlock latent potential in people, period. Everything else is a distraction.
And everything else is prescribed, as in, what should you be posting? Well, what the world says I'm supposed to be posting?
Yeah, well,
what am I supposed to be wearing? Oh, I'm supposed to be wearing what you wear at a convention.
Yeah. Well, the way we'll think, if you get the brass tacks, if someone's asking me about posting, I'm like, hey, you have something awesome to share with the world. And if you don't think, that's okay right now. You will think that, or you won't be here, and you do. Okay. Like, you will, and you do. And well, what is it? What is it? It was like, stop. What thought are you having right now? And they're like, well, I just don't feel like I have anything to add. Write about it right now. Write about it. I feel like I don't have anything to add. And write about that. Write about your interactions And we just give people, it's a journal entry. LinkedIn is a straight journal entry often. Mm-hmm. So talk about something that was really hard that you didn't know how to do, or something that you've gone through you want to share with people. And if you do that in life, not just LinkedIn, in life, you will, it'll be a gravity to you, right? There's a gravity to it.
Mm-hmm. Matt, I want to know, before Dax is going to hit you with some random questions in a bit, but before we get to that, dude, I want to know, what's the future? What's the future of Supered? What's your vision? What should we be looking out for, dude? What's coming?
Our plan for has been, we build for partners first. With 80% of everything we build for a partner is almost like building for an end user, because they serve the same functions often, whether it's like a RevOps manager, sales manager. But because of that, we have like very specific partner stuff that others just wouldn't ever build, and it slows down building. We're almost, and so our first was, hey, we're going to get 200 plus HubSpot partners, and we're going to have it ingrained. And then once we have that, we will then build and go to end users. And we will never have a $100 million company going just through partners. So the next thing that we're building is, we talk about this word adoption. I may change the word adoption to process compliance and enablement and adoption. And so we are going to help people that have methodologies, whether you're a partner or an end user. You will be able to operationalize your methodologies in HubSpot, in Salesforce, in any CRM. Mm-hmm. So we already have people using Super that don't have HubSpot. They literally use it for their product teams. They use it for their own service teams to help teach people how to use their product. They have nothing to do with HubSpot. So you say, what is the future? The future is, we're going to help people take processes, take methodologies, operationalize those, and help people win. Standardize so you can customize.
We got to talk about that word adoption too, because to me, I've found the word adoption like super cringe, depending on how people are using it, right? Oftentimes when I've heard people come to me saying, oh, my leadership team says we need to drive adoption. And I go, well, what does that mean? And they go, I don't know, more confirmed people using it. And I'm like, okay, so like people logging in, and it's often not like really thought past the word of we need to drive adoption. Like it almost seems as like a scapegoat of things are bad, and if we get people to use the software more, things won't be bad. And if we can just call it adoption, we don't have to think too hard about the problem. And you got to think about what does adoption actually, who does that solve for?
Because we're not doing it right. You're not doing it right.
Adoption should just be a byproduct of something that you've built that makes somebody do their job better, makes somebody enjoy doing their job a little bit better, right? And maybe even decreases burnout, right? You got to start thinking of like, not just, am I getting people to use this thing? It's, can I go talk to the people that use this thing and they go, I love using this thing because it makes my job easier to do. Cool. And it makes me feel more fulfilled. And I feel like I can actually help people, and it's helping me, and it's not a hindrance. That's what you should be going for. Right?
I'm going to add that.
Not how many people logged in, right?
People with software that are doing it right and building software companies in the correct way, there is to that moment. It is a metric that I need them to click this. I need them to do this 4 times. And by the 7th time they click here, they're in. They're cooked. Yep. They're cooked. They're smoking the crack forever, because that is a measurement path. I would hope Super does that. I'm sure you guys do. Like, if they do this much, if they just do these things, they will be lifelong.
We don't do that right now.
Well, you don't do it.
That's the next. That is the next. It's in development now. Period. It will be in. So when I say if you have a methodology, you can now say I'm at this percentage of following the methodology, and I'm now at X percentage of following the methodology, and it will be in HubSpot. You can see it by user, and start getting. That's why I think compliance. You need to hit people right when they have pain points. Yeah. By the way, Max, I think you're 100% right. I'll say this is, people confuse KPIs and they start optimizing for KPIs, and the heart. And so adoption is really driving at the heart. And you just ask a user, hey, do you like using X? You should name your CRMs, by the way. I like Jill. It's a great name. Do you like working with Jill? And he's like, no. And then that's like, adoption's bad, and find out why.
Yep.
So it's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah. High adoption should be a byproduct, right? And like we said it. I had a thought and then it trailed off. So
what matters is, again, we're all on the same page. I'm dope. That's an upcoming feature, because when we built like we knew as SEO link building, we knew that if they logged in 3 times a week and they bought 2 packages in 3 months, and then they looked at the reports 4 times, that's the user. Do everything in your life to get them to do that. They're gone. They're going to be here for X amount of years.
Slack has some famous, I forget what it is, but it was literally just, did they send, I can't remember the number. I think did they send 12 Slack messages within the first 72 hours? It was something crazy. Like, if you do that, then you know they're going to be there for life almost. And yeah, it's just getting those. What are the key moments that make it say it's useful? Everything
is about getting that KPI, but it is true. Like, I want to get humans to feel the need to do this, right? Not make them do it. I want to understand what's going on. So that is a piece of them feeling good about what's going on. That's the game. Well, Matt, this is always long overdue, ridiculous pleasure. I got 3 questions for you that are random. Number 1, you said you like to dance. What is your favorite dance moment that you've witnessed? Live, YouTube, in person? What was it? Don't say the moonwalk.
Oh, I don't watch other people dance. I just like to dance. And so there was period. I remember I was sitting at an after party, and I looked to my left, and there was Yamini doing the electric slide beside me. That was fun. That was fun. I just like to create moments and places and spaces where people just have fun and release. And that was fun to see.
That is the human body exerting the natural rhythm that is prevalent for that moment in time.
Yeah.
You change it. Second question. I need to know your favorite late night snack.
Ooh.
You just need something late
night snack. If I have it, I go to Costco, there's this giant, I think they're called Boom Chicka Boom, and they're the sweet ones, and they have
Chicka Pow.
Big Boom Chicka Pow.
Oh,
if I have those, I get this giant, it's pre-done popcorn. I get this giant bowl. So I like playing watching me play a video game at night, and I'm just
what flavor?
Crunching. It's sweet.
Just kettle corn.
Oh, kettle corn.
Yeah, dude.
So that's I say number 2 is, when I say this, I think it's important, is when I was deployed, time number 2, it was a weird deployment. I was in Germany. Anyway, is every night, I played League of Legends, a lot of video games overnight.
There you go.
A lot. And every single night I would go, I get a giant, I don't know why I got a giant bag, jalapeno Cheetos.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yep. And the chili dipping, not the chili, but the cheese sauce.
Yes. In the can.
And I would eat that. And when I finish, I'd stop. And not healthy, not good, but it was great.
No.
It was,
I didn't ask for a diet recommendation.
Are you a PC gamer? I heard League of Legends.
I'm a PC gamer, and I no longer have a PC because I'm currently recovering.
You gotta fix it. Yeah.
You
gotta relapse.
Yeah. When I need the relapse, I'll give you a call, Max.
Yeah.
Man, last question. So, what is your favorite new HubSpot product update? Just to tie it off. The newest thing you could do at HubSpot that you're just like, yo, this is it.
Thank goodness I can name objects.
I thought you
changes everything. It sounds stupid. Like, it's such a powerful. I can name an object, and so you know how many questions I've gotten in the past. Well, this says context, and I'm NGOs, and they're like, or a nonprofit, and there's like actually families and people, and it solves a lot. It's a lot of goodness and being able to name an object.
Well, guys, I appreciate you coming on the Bill Happily podcast. Where can we find you? I'm sure they know. Where can we hear you? Where can we see the brightness?
I spend most of my time, if you DM me on LinkedIn, I'm more likely to respond to you than if you text me. And then we do a lot of stuff on YouTube. But if you DM me on LinkedIn, I will and you send a meme or a GIF or a video.
Key to your heart.
I will respond.
Making sure it's not a robot throwing some bullshit.
But if you just send a random text, I'm probably not going to do it. So
that's the game. Well, Matt, we appreciate you having us on, man. Looking forward to staying super, dude.
My pleasure, Dax and Max. Appreciate y'all, everybody.
Appreciate you.
Stay awesome and keep taking bites of happily.
Yo,
and stay supered.
I didn't see you. And stay supered happily.
Exactly.